Welcome to the broadcast tonight. We began with a conversation on the economy, starting with Charlie Rangel, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, then economist David Malpass, Richard Berner, and from Washington, Lawrence Mishel. And we continue with a look at the NFL playoffs with Tiki Barber and Peter King. The economy and the NFL coming up. Funding for Charlie Rose has been provided by the following.
Each day, 1 billion people won't find safe drinking water. Around the world, we're helping communities to access clean water, working to improve lives through conservation and education, one drop at a time.
Additional funding for Charlie Rose was also provided by these funders.
And by Bloomberg, a provider of multimedia news and information services worldwide. Studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Today, President Bush called for a $140 billion aid package to stimulate the economy. His proposal comes at a time of growing anxiety about the economy and fears of a recession. Here is a part of what the president said.
My advisors and many outside experts expect that our economy will continue to grow over the coming year, but at a slower rate than we have enjoyed for the past few years. And there is a risk of a downturn. To keep our economy growing and creating jobs, Congress and the administration need to work to enact an economic growth package as soon as possible. As Congress considers such a plan, there are certain principles that must guide its deliberations. This growth package must be big enough to make a difference in an economy as large and dynamic as ours, which means it should be about 1% of GDP. This growth package must be built on broad-based tax relief that will directly affect economic growth, and not the kind of spending projects that would have little immediate impact on our economy.
Gentlemen, as Congressman Charlie Rangel of New York, as the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, he is the point person in the House on the president's economic package. I am pleased to have him back at this table. Welcome back.
Good to be with you, Charlie.
Tell me what you think of this stimulus program.
I think it's good. I think it's necessary. Our speaker had us working, Barney Frank and I work on this since December of last year.
And what took place then? The speaker came to you and Speaker Pelosi said, we're going to have a problem with this, and we want the Democrats to come up with a program that can deal with anticipated problems in the economy.
And we want to have something to present to the president if he's going to be cooperative, and if he's not going to be, to have a program that we can present to the American people.
So what did you do? And what did you and Barney Frank do, chairman of Financial Services Committee?
We went back to our committee. I've discussed it with the Republicans to see just how much solidarity we could have. And Jim McCrary, the ranking Republican, fortunately agreed that if we were going to have a recession, that we should be prepared for it, to see how much of a conflict we would have within the Democrats on the committee. In any event, we came up with a list of things. Most of it centers around being timely, getting the money out there quick, that it's a temporary thing, that we can't afford anything long-term. And whether you like it or not, that it be targeted to those people that once they get it, that they're going to spend it. And so we brought a variety of things to this. We took it to the Democratic caucus. I shared these things with our Republicans there. And it worked out so well because all of us was concerned in knowing that being bipartisan was almost as important as getting it out there.
So are you saying to me that Congress is going to sign off on the president's stimulus program essentially as presented?
Yes, of course, the vehicles that we're going to use are ones that the only ones that are available, that is the tax system, the unemployment system, the child credit system, earned income tax system. So I don't see where it's possible to have any problems with the president. Once he took off the table the question of the extension of his 01 and 03 taxes,
right,
then we knew we had something to work with.
No precondition. That would not have been a non-starter from the beginning.
Yeah, but I should have added that we could not have had this dovetail to the extent that we have. It wasn't for Secretary Hank Paulson. because he has an extraordinarily good relationship with the House and Senate Republicans and a good working relationship with me and the House leadership.
And he knows Wall Street.
Yes. Well, I don't know how important that is.
Okay,
he's credible.
Yeah.
And so you know that if you work hard and give him a package and he says he thinks it's going to work, it's going to work. Now, there's going to be probably some provisions there for business. It's not going to be timely. It's certainly going to be difficult to have it to be temporary. And it's hard to see how it's targeted. But for the sake of having bipartisanship and making certain Republicans on board, even though it's not relevant at all to the recession, we're prepared to accept it.
How long will it take to get it through the Congress?
Little or no time, because we've already done all of the legislative homework.
Did the president consult with you when he was thinking about this?
Thank God he didn't.
Why, thank God?
Because the president is so likable, but so stubborn in his political ways that if the question of the tax cuts in 2010 had come up, he would have stuck with it. Fortunately, he was talking with Secretary Paulson, who probably told him that's a non-starter.
Yeah.
And really, most everything that we've got accomplished is not with working with the president, but with Paulson working with the president and working with us and knowing what we can and what we cannot do. And so I don't mean, and so, no, the president, yes, he did work with us through his Secretary of Treasury.
Oh, I see. So you work with Paulson, you didn't work with the president.
Exactly, which I think is the same thing.
And how much did you work with the Finance Committee in the Senate?
Well, we haven't, except Nancy Pelosi has worked with Reid, and there was no need for me to work with Senator Barkas because we all agreed on the concept. You don't have that much latitude when you say it has to get to the low and the moderate income people. So whether you're talking about food stamps or unemployment compensation or expanding the amounts that you send out, you don't have that much latitude. We would like to improve the construction of hospitals and roads and bridges and schools, and all of these are good things. It's just not temporary and it's not timely.
Targeted, temporary, and timely.
It's abundantly clear by all the economists that at a time like this, when you either have a recession or you're trying to hold it back, that you have to get out some money to fuel the economy. And you have to get it in the hands of people who are not going to contemplate what they're going to do with it.
They know what to do with it.
They know what they have to do with it, that they're going to spend the money. And I just hope that this spirit in which the president has said that this has to be done, why get into a fight where we all are losers? For Democrats to be fighting Republicans and all of us fighting the executive, by that time, it'd be just too late to do anything.
I'll come back to the economy in just a moment. I mean, is this ought to be a model for the way the Congress and the president, the executive and legislative branch ought to be working?
It's no question about it.
And do you think it's possible to have this kind of cooperation on other issues in the future?
I think saying that the Congress and the executive branch are working together does a lot to arrest the escalation of a recession, where people would know, no matter what's going on economically, at least the federal government is together and trying to work out some solution. But, you know, when you say you're getting money out there to the poor, the near poor, and the moderates, they're the ones that have never known the economic success that we've been through during the good times. Right. And so we don't expect that they would be saying thank you. All we're doing is easing the ongoing economic pain that these people are going through with oil, with child care, with health. It's pretty rough out there for someone just trying to make a living.
This is a division between those who have and those who don't.
Exactly.
Is there anything you wish was in here that's not in here?
I wish it could be more permanent. There's a provision. I don't know whether it would be included, because when we presented these things to our leadership, and she presented to the Republicans and the Senate, we included a lot of things that people could pick and choose from. One of those things is giving money to the governors to increase the federal contribution to Medicaid, which is health care for the poor.
Right.
We are so afraid that governors during a recession will start cutting back on human services. And we would like to be there for them. There are many, many infrastructure projects that are going on. If we had some way of knowing that they were stopped because of lack of money, and we were sophisticated enough to know that once we presented to these local and state officials the opportunity to get money out there, that they would be fair with us and not transfer money in order to make this eligible to receive this quick Flash.
Thank you so much for being here.
Good to be with you, Charlie.
Congressman Charlie Rangel of New York, powerful chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, which is where all tax legislation begins in the United States Congress. We'll be back and we'll hear from some economists, and then we'll end this evening talking about the Packers, the Giants, the Chargers, and the Patriots. Stay with us. We continue our discussion on the economy with David Malpass, chief economist at Bear Stearns, and Dick Berner, chief economist at Morgan Stanley. From Washington, Lawrence Mishel, director of the Economic Policy Institute. He testified before the Congressional Joint Economic Committee this week. I am pleased to have each of them. Before we talk about the stimulus package, I just want to go around the clock here. Tell me how bad the situation is, and what is this country facing in terms of economic downturn?
I think there was a sharp inflection point in August downward, and we're feeling the results of that now in the fourth quarter and the first quarter. But I think we'll skirt a recession. There's lots of strengths in the U.S. economy in terms of small businesses, a pretty low unemployment rate at 5%. I'd like it lower, but by historical standards, it's not too bad. That means a lot of people working. Personal income growth has been reasonable over this expansion, and the Fed's being proactive. They've really gotten on top of it, more so than in the Greenspan years. And so I think we'll have a weak fourth quarter. We'll get the data in a couple weeks, maybe 1.5%, and then a little slower in the first quarter. But then we begin a tepid recovery after that.
So the classical definition of recession is 2 successive quarters of negative growth?
That's right, and we should skirt that.
I'm more pessimistic, Charlie. I think we are in recession right now, and I think that recession will probably be mild. So qualitatively, it's not a lot different from what David is talking about, but I think there are some important differences out there. We're in the deepest housing downturn we've seen in the post-war period, and it's far from over. And I think that that has some consequences for the rest of the economy as it spills over into other parts of the economy.
And is it spreading over into credit cards and a whole range of other kinds of economic?
Well, what's spread over into credit cards and to other kinds of financing arises from the fact that, as David mentioned, we had a shock earlier this summer, a financial shock, and it hit us at a time when credit spreads were very narrow. In other words, credit was easy, and that was helping to fuel the economy. And since that time, we've seen a repricing of financial assets, a repricing of risk in financial markets, and lenders have turned cautious, and the cost of borrowing has gone up. So that's going to spread in the economy much more broadly than just housing. And that's one of the key headwinds, but not the only one that faces the economy.
But let me go to Washington first. Lawrence Mishel, what do you think?
Well, let's take a look at what this looks like from the point of view of a typical working family. Over the course of this recovery, we've actually seen very little income growth. And right now, people's incomes are less than it was when we went into the recession back in 2001. That's where we've been. Most people actually think we've been in a recession for a while. Take that with, we just got news that the unemployment rate went up 0.3% in December. And every time over the last 50 years that happened, we went into a recession. And whether or not David is right or Dick is right, either way, I'll bet that their projections are that there's much higher unemployment by the end of this year and into next year. And what we've estimated, if historical experience is a guide, that the typical middle-class family earning around $52,000 will lose $1,000 this year because of higher unemployment and an additional $1,400 next year. And to me, that's what defines the problem, not whether we are technically in a recession or not. I don't really care. The fact that if growth is slow and rising unemployment is